But besides that, Mike, it was written somewhere 1500, 2000 BC.
Maybe. Certainly, some people think maybe 800 BC after King David, but it's still pretty old. That would make it 2,800 years ago. Still a long time ago.
Long, long time ago.
Yeah.
Way before Dinosaur came out in 1841. Interesting again, Mike, the Bible talks about the evidence that we have out there. And it was written down before this evidence even came out 2,000 years later. It's just, again...
Yeah, why don't we read a description briefly of,
Go ahead,
of Leviathan in Job.
I think it's 40. Job chapter 40.
Well, Behemoth is in 40.
Behemoth, yeah. And, Leviathan's in 41.
And Leviathan's in 41. So here's 41.
Well, you're going into the Leviathan.
Yeah, right. But this is a greater... Well, they're both really good. The Leviathan, let's look at Leviathan first. Leviathan, God is talking to Job, and he says, you know, he's basically saying you can't mess around with this creature. He's pretty fearsome. And he goes right through the first verse all the way down. On 14th verse says, who can open the doors of his face? His teeth are terrible round about. His scales are his pride, shut up together as with a close seal. One is so near to another that no air can come between them. So he's got these powerful scales. They're joined one to another. They stick together. They cannot be sundered or torn apart. Out of his mouth go burning lamps, and sparks of fire leap out. Out of his nostrils goes smoke as out of a seething pot or cauldron. His breath kindles coals, and a flame goes out of his mouth. The flakes of his flesh are joined together. They are firm in themselves. They cannot be moved. Now, it talks about someone trying to attack this creature. The sword of him that lays at him cannot hold. The spear, the dart, nor the harbigeron, I guess it's another weapon. He esteems iron as straw and brass as rotten wood. So this creature would treat iron like straw. That indicates an awful lot of strength, right, Jay?
Yeah.
The arrow can't make him flee. Sling stones are turned with him into rubble. Darts are counted as stubble. He laughs at the shaking of a spear. He makes the deep, the oceans, to boil like a pot. He makes the sea like a pot of ointment. So it's a picture of a scaly creature where the weapons can't get through, no matter what you try and do. And that's a picture of certain dinosaurs with a kind of metal, kind of almost powerful plates that they seemingly had. And he's going to mention the one Behemoth that you said in the 40th chapter, in which it talks about him having a tail like a cedar tree.
Right.
And you know,
and his bones are like beams of
cedar tree
bronze.
is huge.
His ribs like bars of iron. And we saw that one scientist standing there with that one huge bone. And so again, here's a description
now, how would they know unless, you know, and the Bible, you know, I was thinking about this, as I was thinking about this subject today, I was thinking about William Albright. He was like the dean of biblical archaeology, and he's saying, you know, you can trust the Bible. It's accurate. It's credible historically. And if they're going to write stuff like this, which they want people to believe, they're not going to talk about mythical, non-believable creatures. And here it says that God is speaking to Job, and he says, you've considered them. You've seen them. So it indicates that they were seen at that time. And of course, historically, there are many records of people fighting dragons in history.
And I love what God says to Job. He says, Mike, look now at the behemoth which I made along with you.
He's going to bring that up as well, which is yeah, God, the Bible is testifying to the fact that the dinosaurs were there with us.
With man.
From the beginning.
So that completely refutes the evolutionary teaching.
Either you believe one or the other.
Right.
And since we were convinced by prophecy and other things, Jesus' words, that the Bible is true, we think it's true all around. So we like to present some of these evidences.
Right, and I want to throw along with that what we saw.
And Rose will be right with you, Rose.
And why do we have drawings from the Native American Indians
Sure. Why would
in
they?
Utah of these dinosaurs that this Bible talks about.
And throughout the world, South America, they're drawn on
Why
stones.
are we finding dinosaur bones in Montana, in Belgium, in Pittsburgh, in Australia? Interesting again.
And with fish and crocodiles in Montana. I've got a guy in 2003 talking about stuff he's recently found out there, and he's got it in his museum out there, and it's right out there to be seen. But let's listen to Rose. Rose, I think this is the Rose who's called before. Am I right?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Rose.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Happy Resurrection Weekend.
Thank you. Thank you for
that's right.
saying resurrection, Rose.
Happy Resurrection
We're not
Weekend,
into
too.
Eshtar ourselves, so
No,
thank you.
not at all. I was looking at Webster's dictionary. I don't believe these words have been altered, but the descriptions of the animals you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we know that Webster was a Christian, and he wrote this book, but a number of the words have been altered. Behemoth is defined as a noun, and it's a huge animal. Dinosaur is a noun, and it's a huge extinct reptile. And Leviathan, it says noun, Bible sea monster, huge thing. So that'll bring some information to the discussion here.
To the viewers, yes.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Rose.
Thank you. You know, some other things in relation, those of you who like to, I was an agnostic, basically atheist, and there are many like that, and there are many into other religions and reject Christianity and stuff. I'd like to throw out some questions relating to the truth of Christianity, for if you have those viewpoints, if you might have a response to this. Some people, you've got in the Talmud, the Jewish Talmud, I come from a Jewish background, believe that Jesus is the Jewish Messiah. The Talmud says that he was put to death because he was leading Israel astray with his sorcery. And the Romans say he was put to death, Tacitus, the Roman historian, writing around 100 AD. And the Talmud is ancient too. So they say, so the Roman Tacitus historian says that under Pontius Pilate, Jesus was put to death. Now, so we know that he existed and was put to death because some people don't want to believe he existed. Barrett would be right with you. Some people don't like to believe that Jesus existed. So the first question is, why would people who are against him, they would just say he didn't exist if they believe that. But my fellow Jews back then, they said, no, he was put to death because he was leading Israel astray with his sorcery. So not only does it say that he lived, but it says that he did supernatural feats, amazing feats. And in fact, the Bible says that he was, that the Pharisees said he was doing these things through the power of the devil. So they're testifying to what the Bible says. They just are coming, that's what Jesus said they said. They called him the son of the devil and a sorcerer, and he said, of course, I'm just fulfilling prophecy. I'm the Messiah, as spoken about 700 and something years before in Isaiah 53, which shows so much about his life that could not have been made up. So that's one question. So you have to know that he existed and that he did supernatural feats, because they wouldn't have said so. The Talmud wouldn't have said he did these supernatural feats. Now, the second question is, and then we'll get to Barrett, second question is that I'd like to add, and I'll ask it to Barrett. So Barrett, this is a test for you. So the first question is, why would his people who are against him write about him and talk about his supernatural feats if he didn't do them? Number two, the second question is, let's see, what was the second question? Oh, those who wrote the New Testament, they went to their death saying they saw him raise dead people, heal lepers, blind people throughout Israel. Again, those sorcery things that the Talmud talked about. For years, he just did it. For 3 years, he went throughout Israel, healing people, raising dead people. Lots of lame people and blind people. Blind from birth. People knew them from when they were babies in town. They knew they were blind. Couldn't see. He comes along, they can see. Happens all over the place. Now, the Romans testified when they tortured these people because they wanted them to stop believing in this Jesus, because they didn't want two gods. They didn't want a God that was higher than Caesar. Caesar was, it was okay if you had lots of gods, but no one higher than